Assalamualaikum. My name is Aida Adiba from section 2. Today I will present a short report on common workplace issue faced by employee, which is sexual harassment. Today's presentation will consist of 4 parts, which is introduction, findings, conclusion, and also recommendation. Move on to the introduction. Introduction. Workplace harassment takes many forms such as verbal harassment, racial harassment, religious harassment, and many more. While verbal and psychological harassment are the most common form, there are also more serious forms such as physical and sexual harassment. The primary target for this harassment are mostly women, but we should aware that the victims and the perpetrators can come from all genders. Apart from that, there are also provisions on sexual harassment under the Employment Act 1955, where in the Employment Act 1955, sexual harassment has been defined under Section 2, which is sexual harassment means any unwanted conduct of a sexual nature, whether verbal, non-verbal, visual, gestural, or physical, direct at a person which is offensive or humiliating or is a threat to their well-being that arises during working hours. The advantages of being a Malaysian employee protected by law is from the result of an investigation into sexual harassment against the perpetrator who found guilty of his action, and if any employer fails to investigate a complaint of sexual harassment reported to them, they will be punished under Section 509 of the Penal Code. All types of workplace harassment are illegal. They can have a negative impact on employees' productivity, comfort, and safety at work, as well as expose every organization to legal risks if those harassment are not handled effectively. In this report, we will discuss about the common workplace issue faced by the employees by focusing on sexual harassment. The objectives are to study about sexual harassment and ways to prevent and how to overcome these problems. This report involved 73 respondents to answer the question in the survey regarding sexual harassment. Next, findings. The most shocking result show more than half of the respondents, which is 63.9% of them, had been the victims. Only 36.1% of them had never been the victims of sexual harassment at work. Very unethical behavior performed by the perpetrator. Perpetrator can be defined as an individual who carries out a harmful, illegal, or immoral act. Figure 6 and Figure 7 show same results, where 50.7% of them had been repeatedly told sexist story or jokes, and when the perpetrator made remarks, comments about their appearance, body, and sexual activities that were offensive to the victims, while about 49.3% of the respondents voted no. A significant result had come out when 71.2% of the victims had been touched in a way that made them feel uncomfortable against their will. Based on those percentages, results indicate that sexual harassment can be a factor of job satisfaction. There are a lot of consequences from the sexual harassment behavior that lead to restless and unattractive work atmosphere. Victims of sexual harassment will suffer mental disorder, feelings of fear when alone, and feeling weak when coming across a sexual harasser. Emotional and mental trauma experienced by the victims make they lose focus and lose interest in their work. The victim is also more likely to decide to stop working at the organization. For example, in the case of Melawar Corporation Berhad versus Abu Osman, a real court case in 1994, the perpetrator has been claimed guilty on charge of physically touching his employee. He was found saying lewd words and touching female staff. As a result, the perpetrator has been demoted to assistant manager from human resource group manager. He filed a complaint under Section 20, Bracket 1 of the Industrial Relations Act 1967, but the court stuck up with his employer's decision. Next, figure 19 shows 54.2 respondents think that their higher level management will definitely not going to tolerate with sexual harassment, and 45.8% of them think otherwise. This is a bit disturbing for me actually, when more than a quarter of the respondents think that their organization will tolerate with sexual harassment, because this will lead to the next question. About 65.8% from them believe it is risky to file a harassment complaint towards higher level management. Organization needs to be held accountable to perpetrators and complainants for the sake of justice. Whereas in the case of Harun bin Yaqub versus RHB Bank Berhad, a real court case happened in 2017, where the perpetrator of the sexual harassment case was not satisfied with the action of his employer, who failed to carry out internal investigation, and the perpetrator were not given any opportunity to defend themselves, and also considered the termination of his employment unreasonable. In this case, the court ruled that the dismissal punishment put on the perpetrator was inappropriate and not commensurate. The court then awarded a bad salary and a deduction of 50% for misconduct contribution and compensate to the original post about 107,415 ringgit Malaysia. In conclusion, this short report confirms that more female employees in Malaysia experience sexual harassment, and this situation gives a negative implication toward victims as well as the organization. In order to make a fair and legal decision on a sexual harassment complaint, organization needs to find out as much information as they can, not only rely on the incident itself, but also on the victims and accusers' personality and surrounding. Personally, we have to educate more people the implication about this ill sexual harassment behavior. Never set intention to perform it. They should think for the long-term investment, why they should risk and jeopardize their own and others' careers and reputation if they will not gain any positive achievement from it. Every person who leave their house for work in the morning should return home in good health in the evening. This is the only reason why it is important to create a safe working environment. For the recommendation, based on the finding and conclusion in this study, there are 3 recommendations that can be made. First, organization needs to provide a clear definition of sexual harassment. As we already know, physical harassment is a sexual harassment, then we need to define it more clearly. That unwanted touch, such as petting, pinching, stroking, body rubbing, hugging, and kissing also include as sexual assault. Asking sexual questions, make a suggestive sexual comments about a person's body, clothing, or looks, making kissing sound, howling and smacking lips, and even repeatedly asking out from a person who is not interested are the example for verbal sexual harassment. HR department can blast an email every 3 months to give a reminder or memo to all employees about sexual harassment. Second recommendation, organization need to show disciplinary rules and penalties against harassers as well as against those who make false complaints. It is essential that harassers to be disciplined to guarantee the effectiveness of policy against sexual harassment. The disciplinary rules should set out the penalties to which the harasser will be given if the offense is committed, such as dismissing employees without notice, degrading workers, and suspension without pay. These rules should also apply against those who make such false accusation. If only one employee was punished by this rule, it will give example towards other person who might have intention on doing so this ill behavior in the organization to stop it immediately. The last recommendation, the organization needs to provide protective and rehabilitative measures to victims. Most of the victims will feel embarrassment at the time they make complaint and during the investigation process. If proven that the victim have suffered a loss such as demotion or denial of a promotion, this is the best time to make up to this mistake. Organization should give them the proper position on the job they deserve. The organization should collaborate with a psychiatrist or create a coverage insurance plan borne by the organization for victims to undergo psychiatric treatment resulting in severe emotional and mental damage. That's it from me about the short report regarding sexual harassment. Thank you.